welcome to Ask Ben, the wisdom and witticisms of Benjamin Franklin. In this program, we will attempt to answer your questions in the spirit of, well, as Ben would answer them. I have here a question from a Mr. Todd Gack of Hubbardton, Vermont. Ethan Allen country, Green Mountain Boys. You know, Ethan Allen did more than just make furniture during the Revolution. Mr. Gack writes, Dear Ben, is it true that you wore an old fur hat while you were our American ambassador to France? Well, Mr. Gack, that is in fact true. In fact, I did wear an old fur hat. It was cold. I wore it on the voyage over, and I wore it in Paris during the winter. In fact, here it is. Let me model it for you. Now, how's it look? It became all the rage in Paris and all throughout France. In fact, people began wearing these ridiculous fur caps in emulation of mine. I set off a fashion trend among the Parisians, which is unusual because it's normally the French who take the lead in all things fashionable. Well, I was told I was to visit the King Louis XVI at his court at Versailles, and protocol demanded that I wear a powdered wig, a satin fancy suit, and a ceremonial dress sword. Well, first of all, I've never been known for my sartorial elegance, and I detest wigs. They're itchy, and they don't fit my head right. My rather large cranium could never find one that was comfortable for me. So I just wore my hair in a normal fashion and my plain brown homespun suit. And this is what I wore to court, and my walking stick instead of a dress sword. And people were much impressed by that in France. They perceived me as the backwoods philosopher from Pennsylvania, an old Quaker perhaps, even though I'm not of that faith. But people seem to appreciate that, and they've actually thought I lived on the frontier, when in fact I've never lived on the frontier. I lived in Boston, in Philadelphia, and London. And in France, I was living in a suburb of Paris at Passy, on the outskirts of town. But never lived on the frontier, no. But no matter, the people thought I was a rustic philosopher, a sage philosopher from America, come to call on the King of France. Now, of course, with wigs, as Richard Saunders says, you might recall in Poor Richard's Almanac, 3 things are men most likely to be cheated in: a horse, a wig, and a wife. Now, as for the fancy suit, I wore, as I said, my homespun brown coat and my spectacles, which now that I'm old, I wear them all the time, which apparently is another fashion faux pas. But, by the way, those bifocals you're wearing, yeah, I invented those, 1785. Check it out. You know, I got tired of switching glasses all the time, you know, the nearsighted, the far, so came up with the bifocals. Excuse me. Anyway, I was very well received by the king and his lovely queen, Marie Antoinette, and the people of France began to, take a shine to me, I might say. They were quite enamored of the sage of Philadelphia. An artist even drew a picture of me wearing my marten fur cap. As you can see here, they, yep. That's me with the cap on. And they began to, even struck a medallion with me and the fur cap. And my image began to appear on snuff boxes and keepsakes and different things that people purchased. And I wrote to my daughter Sally that my image began to be as familiar to the people of Paris as the man on the moon. Anyway, what it really represented was our American spirit, American virtue, and the American cause. And ultimately, we were able to win over France as our ally in the war with England, our common enemy, the British Empire. And now here is a portrait of me being received by the King and Queen at the court at Versailles. And you can see, for example, the difference in my simple black coat and this gentleman with his fancy, all the folks are simply dressed to the nines, if you will. And that's how business was carried on in France. But, I was different. So, but it seemed to work out for us, as I was our first foreign ambassador from the United States to any country. And things, of course, went our way. We were able to procure loans, and 90% of our munitions and weapons, cannons, and muskets came from France. And without the help of the French, we would never have won our independence, for which we are eternally grateful. Well, Mr. Gack, I hope that answers your question. Say, what kind of name is Gack anyway? Sounds Dutch. Anyway, we're almost out of time. I do have one more quick question here, and this one comes from a Mrs. Ruth Henderson of Baltimore. And she writes, "Dear Ben, how do you make those fancy radish roses?" Well, easy peasy, Mrs. Henderson. Simply insert a knife into the center of the radish and twist. Then to make it bloom, soak it in water for 30 to 40 minutes. Voila, done. That was an easy one. Well, keep those cards and letters coming, folks. And if you prefer, simply send me an email at bcarlton@gcls.org. And we will attempt to answer your questions as we think Ben would. Anyway, that's all for now. I hope you'll watch our next edition of Ask Ben. And once again, merci. That means thank you in French. You know, it's like those French have a different word for everything.